Whew, we've all been there, staring at the screen, camera off, mic muted, wondering why. Why? Why is this meeting happening right now? Or worse, you've been on the other side of that, leading the meeting, thinking it's productive. Meanwhile, your team is secretly counting down the minutes until freedom. In this episode, I'm going to go over some of the biggest meeting no-nos, the habits that kill engagement, waste time, and honestly make people kind of wish that they were somewhere else. Anywhere else but here right now. And trust me, some of you are about to realize that you might be that manager. And I'm going to illustrate this with a character named Jordan. Jordan is a hardworking professional, maybe kind of like you, who takes pride in his work. He loves when he has time on his calendar to get things done. Same, right? But today is going to be a test of his endurance, his patience, his sheer will not to throw his laptop out the nearest window. Instead of making progress on his ever-growing to-do list, he's about to embark an unholy pilgrimage of 5 back-to-back meetings. And what's interesting is I have clients who 5 is they would laugh at that. They are in 8 to 12 back-to-back meetings every day. So I've seen the full spectrum of I have no meetings to I am in meetings all day. As soon as I hit the office, it's go time. In Jordan's case, each meeting is more pointless than the last. And by the end of the day, he's going to be asking himself the same thing that you probably have more times than you may even be willing to admit. Did that meeting really need to happen? So what I love about Jordan is Jordan likes to start his day with hope, a fresh cup of coffee, a quiet morning, and a clear plan. But today, the phone is blowing up. There's so many notifications, and Jordan looks at his calendar and he says, "Oh, okay. I see what's happening here. I've got a weekly check-in, I've got a brainstorming session, I've got a sync meeting. There's a after the sync meeting, and then there's a daily stand-up. There's a lot going on today. This isn't exactly how I wanted to spend my day. Not in 5 meetings, not with no time to get stuff done because I had plans. I had plans and then I took a look at my calendar. My calendar laughed at me, right? So I want to welcome you to the podcast. I'm Dr. Heather Walker. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist, and this is the Lead with Levity podcast. Welcome. Work doesn't have to be so hard. Today, I want to talk about meetings because when you step into a new role, you need to be able to get this part right. And I've seen so many leaders, people who have managed teams for 10, 15, 20 plus years, people who should technically know better, suck the life out of the room in meetings. So today, I'm going to break down 6 meeting offenses, what they are, how to spot them, and what they're really telling your team. So if you recognize any of these, I don't want you to panic. I just want you to do better. Please, just do better for all of us. So let's get into it. Faux pas number 1. I'm going to call it the Chris show. Have you ever sat in a meeting where one person just talks and talks and talks? Yeah, that is the Chris show. Chris is the guy who thinks he's dropping wisdom, but really he's just holding everyone hostage. And he'll start with a quick check-in, and suddenly you're getting his entire origin story and everything he's learned along the way. Here are some signs that you're in the Chris show. You've been on mute for 20 minutes or more. The meeting is really just a TED Talk that no one asked for. They're talking so much that you can actually go check your email, refill your coffee, come back, and guess what? Chris is still talking. What message do you think this sends the team? It says your input isn't needed. Just sit there and listen. That's number one. All right, let's get into number two. The meeting that pretends to be a discussion, but it isn't. This one is so sneaky because it pretends to be this team discussion, but the decision has already been made in advance. And you know these meetings. These are the meetings where the manager asks, hey, what do you all think? But the second you start suggesting something, they're like, yeah, no. Or they ask, hey, what do you all think? I want to hear your thoughts on this. And then they keep talking. They don't even pause to give you an opportunity to respond, right? That's fake collaboration. That's a fake brainstorm. And it sends the message that this wasn't actually meant to be a discussion. This was all just for show. So that's two. And now I want to talk about the meeting that completely goes off the rails. Okay. This is where you go into a meeting thinking it's going to be quick and focused. And sometimes managers will say this is going to be 5 minutes. This is going to be quick. I just need a couple minutes. But then someone brings up a book that they read, or some podcast that they just found, or their weekend hike. And before you know it, you're 30 minutes into this meeting and nothing has been accomplished. You haven't talked about anything that you came in there to talk about. And you know you're in this when the agenda is there, but it's not being used. When someone asks, hey, wait, what were we talking about again? The actual reason for the meeting never even gets discussed. This one happens all the time, and it sends the message that you don't respect people's time. Hmm. This is a big, big, big problem that happens across the globe. And it can be really frustrating to be in a meeting like this. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have fun conversations with your team. I think that's great. As long as you are also ensuring that you're getting things done as well. You've got to bring in that balance. Number four is the let's circle back meeting. It's the meeting where decisions should be made, but instead everything just gets postponed and then postponed again. And before you know it, you've had three separate meetings about the same thing and no actual decisions have been made. And you know you're in it when the go-to way to end the meeting is let's revisit this next time. Or there are no action items that come up by the end of the meeting. Or if you start losing hope that the project is ever going to move forward, that it's ever going to get done. And if you think that's frustrating, I want to talk about the meeting that feels more like an interrogation. This is the micromanager stand up. So stand ups are supposed to be quick, like 15 minutes quick, but not with a micromanager. Instead of a normal check-in, this turns into this interrogation where every single person has to justify what they're working on, why they made certain decisions. People start to get really defensive in these meetings because they don't feel like their work is trusted. They don't feel trusted to do their job. That's meeting number five, right? The micromanager stand up. And finally, last on my list, I want to talk about the worst of them all. You may disagree with me, and that's okay. I can handle that. This is the meeting that should have been an email. This. This is the one that makes people lose all faith in humanity. It's a meeting where nothing actually happens. Just one person reading updates that could have easily been emailed or dropped in Slack. I have been in meetings like this before where they were literally reading updates. Sometimes this can happen in board meetings and other forums where a lot of people are on the call, but only a few people can speak to what's on the agenda. So everybody else there is just watching, multitasking, turning their cameras off, losing an hour that they're honestly never going to get back. Real quick, I want to tell you something. I'm so excited about something that I put together for you and that I've been working on. It's a program that's going to help you sort of step into your new role with confidence. So you know exactly, exactly what you need to do, who you need to talk to, how to approach your role in a way that builds credibility at work. Right now, a lot of people are getting asked questions every single day. They're getting pulled into offices, and leadership is asking them, show me your receipts. What have you done for us lately? Why should you keep your job? And people are getting blindsided by this because they thought, I've been here for 20 years. If you didn't think I could do my job, why am I here? And they're like, exactly. Why are you here? And because they don't have the documentation, the support, everything that they need to be able to quickly demonstrate their value and the impact that they've had on the business, their job is on the chopping block. Or they're passed over for opportunities, or they're passed over for promotions, or they don't get the kind of performance rating that they were expecting. They get a meets expectations instead of an outstanding, exceptional, excellent, which is what you know you are. That's the kind of work you deliver. But if you're depending on your manager to remember all of those things, you could be setting yourself up for disappointment later on. So I put together a program that is not just theory, it's packed with step-by-step guidance, ready to use templates so that you can literally copy paste the system that I've used personally to make sure that I'm standing out at work, and the system that I've helped others with. You can use that today. You can use that this week. So if you're interested in that, I would like for you to find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Lead with Levity, and I'll share that with you. I want everyone to be able to get their hands on this, especially now. All right. So let's talk about these meetings. We have these 6 meetings that are incredibly frustrating. They take up a lot of time, and all of the time that's spent there is not being spent on what actually needs to get done. And if you've been nodding along thinking, yep, yep, I've sat through all of those painful meetings, or if you're leading meetings and you're seeing yourself in some of those mistakes, that's okay. What's done is done. You can commit to doing it differently next time, because great leaders don't just put meetings on the calendar. They make sure that those meetings actually matter. That's a quote right there. You can lick it, stick it, mail it to grandma. Oh, I love living in the South. You can say things like that and it's okay. So before you send that next calendar invite, I want you to ask yourself, does this meeting actually need to happen? And with all of these people, every single one of these people, especially when you start thinking about how much they make per hour and how expensive that meeting is going to be once you add 20 people to it. For those of you who work in settings where you have those big meetings, think about that. Is what we're going to get out of this meeting equal to or going to give us an even higher return than the amount that we are spending in this meeting? So, if this meeting costs me $100, am I going to get $100 plus back out of this meeting? Or is it just going to be another opportunity for us to waste time? Just a thought. Don't get mad at me. Next question I want you to ask yourself is, what are we going to accomplish by the end of this meeting? I like to put that in my calendar invites. So when someone books a call with me, they type in I ask, what do you hope to accomplish by the end of this meeting? Because you better believe if it seems like that meeting is going off to left field somewhere, at some point, I'm going to come back to what they said and say, hey, remember, you mentioned that this is what you wanted to accomplish today. Are we doing the things that we need to do to get there? And the third question I want you to ask yourself is, could this be solved with something simple like a Slack or Teams message or a very well-written email instead. And if you do decide to schedule the meeting, here's what you can do to get the meeting back on track if you need to. And you can do this without shutting people down, without sounding like the meeting police. It's three strategies, and you can pick one of these. Seriously, I want you to pick one of these, try it in your next meeting if you start to see things getting a little off. Strategy one, acknowledge and redirect. So you can't just, you can, but don't, don't just cut someone off mid-story. Because if you do that, you cannot expect them to be okay with it. Okay. So if you cut someone off mid-story, know that you have chosen violence and and all the consequences that come with that. So don't just cut them off mid-story. That's how you make enemies at work. Instead, acknowledge what they said and then gently steer the conversation back to where it needs to go. The formula looks like celebrate plus protect plus friendly reminder equals back on track. Celebrate what they said. Celebrate that they actually made a contribution to the conversation. That's how we create this sense of psychological safety. That's how we help people feel like they can bring themselves to work. Celebrate that they made a contribution to the conversation. Protect what they shared and put it in a safe place for later. That might be the parking lot. That might be you saying, I just took a note on that. Thank you for sharing that with me. Remind them why we're meeting, and then you're magically back on track. Yes, I know it sounds simple, but it works. And here's how it might sound in real life. I love that story, Mark. Let's come back to it after we tackle this next item so we can keep up this momentum. Boom. It's friendly, but it's firm. You're not dismissing the other person. You're not bullying them or ignoring them. You're validating what they said and you're keeping the meeting moving forward. Strategy number two is tie it back to the main topic. Because sometimes a conversation takes a detour and sometimes it needs to take a detour. That's okay. I want to give you an example. Last week, I was in a meeting about a 2.5 day career clarity program that I designed to help high performers get clear on what they want out of their careers, what their options are in the company, how to enroll the support of their managers and other leaders when it's time for career conversations. And out of nowhere, someone started talking about the time that she was in this existential crisis after she had her baby, and she was torn between going back to work at the same pace that she was at before or just quitting altogether. And at first, it seemed completely off track. Like, okay, cool. But then I was able to find a way to tie it back to one of the benefits of the program. That if she were actually in the program at that time, she would have been showed ways to make both of those options work for her. She didn't have to give up her career to be a good mom. And so instead of shutting her down, which would have completely been offensive and me just being like so cold and out of touch, I found a way to bring it back to the main discussion. This is what you could say. You'd say, that's a great point. Speaking of that, let's talk about whatever is next on the agenda. It's a really nice way to redirect while keeping that person engaged. They're much less likely to check out if you do it this way. Strategy number three is use the agenda as an anchor point. So when things really, really, really start to drift, sometimes you just got to call it out and and you got to tell everybody, "Hey, it's time to refocus." And the easiest way to do this is to remind everyone of the agenda. I had to figure this out for myself because I used to get angry. Like on the inside, I was probably getting red too on the outside, but I was getting angry on the inside, just looking around like, what are we doing? What is happening right now? How can I help everyone stay on track? I actually got really good at this and started to build a reputation. People knew I mean business, and we're going to have a good time, but we're also going to get things done. So if you're a manager, you could say something like, I'm sure we could talk about this all day, but we have about 15 minutes left. So let's make sure we hit this topic, which is your priority topic, before we wrap up today. Remember it, and if you aren't leading the meeting, you can say something like, you could look at your phone and go, "Ooh, I just noticed." Ooh, yeah, right. Add in the ooh. I just noticed we have 15 minutes left. What do you want to accomplish with the time that we have left? That I'm giving you gold right now, y'all. That statement alone makes you look like a helper, right? To your manager. Your manager goes, "Oh, yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were thinking about that." I use the second one all the time in meetings with clients. It helps. I use this. I use this all the time. I really do. And when you use this kind of language, it puts you in a place where people see you as the type of person who respects everyone's time. So I want to give you one last bonus strategy. Those are the three strategies. One last bonus strategy. It's the parking lot trick. And you can use the chat for this because some people just love to talk. They are so chatty. And sometimes what they're saying is actually valuable. It just doesn't belong in this meeting, right? So here's a little trick. You could say, I love that idea. Let's drop it in the chat so we don't forget it and we can follow up later. Oh my gosh, so easy, right? Now their idea doesn't disappear. They don't feel like, oh, I've got to hold on to it. I've got to keep pushing this forward because we're capturing it. We acknowledged it, we captured it, and it also isn't going to hijack the meeting. So it's a win-win situation there. So here are my final thoughts for you today. I want to close with this. If you want better meetings, just steer the conversation without shutting people down. Next time you're in a meeting that starts to go a little bit off the rails, try one of the moves that I recommended. Acknowledge and redirect. Tie it back to the main topic. Use the agenda as an anchor. And if all else fails, park it in the chat. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram at Lead with Levity or connect with me on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. And there are so many ways. Okay. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow me on Instagram at Lead with Levity or connect with me on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. I'm sharing tips, I'm sharing extra resources, so many ways to get through these common challenges that we all face when we go to work. And we're just trying to have a good day. We're just trying to get some stuff done. And, it's a little bumpy. If you want some tips on how to smooth out that bumpiness, I want you to subscribe. I want you to subscribe. I want you to get in the game. Until next time, take care, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.